Imagine a man so powerful that entire cities surrendered at the sound of his name. Long ago, on the vast, windswept steppes of Mongolia, a child was born who would change the course of history forever. His name was Temujin, but the world would come to know him as Genghis Khan. He was not born into a royal palace or a wealthy family. His beginnings were humble and filled with great hardship. The world around him was a chaotic place. Nomadic tribes were constantly fighting each other for land, resources, and power. There was no single nation, only a collection of warring clans. This was the world that Temujin was born into, a place where survival was a daily struggle and trust was a rare and precious commodity. This story is about how that young boy, abandoned and left for dead, rose above his circumstances. It is the story of how he used his intelligence, his will, and his vision to unite the scattered Mongol tribes into a single, powerful nation. He did not simply conquer, he created. He built an army that was unlike any the world had ever seen before. This army was disciplined, loyal, and incredibly effective. With this force, he would go on to build the largest contiguous land empire in the history of the world, stretching from the shores of the Pacific Ocean to the heart of Europe. His impact on the world is complex and often misunderstood. In many parts of the world, his name is associated with brutality and destruction. He is remembered as a ruthless conqueror who left cities in ruins. However, this is only one part of his story. He was also a brilliant administrator and a visionary leader. He created a legal code, established a postal system, and promoted trade and communication across his vast empire. He connected the East and the West in ways that had never been done before, leading to an unprecedented exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures. This essay will explore the life of this remarkable man. We will look at the real events of his life, separating fact from the many myths that have grown around him over the centuries. We will journey back to the 12th century to understand the boy named Temujin. We will follow his path as he overcame incredible odds to become the Great Khan. We will examine how he built his empire, the strategies he used, and the legacy he left behind. A legacy that continues to shape our world even today, on this day, August 28th, 2025. Temujin's life began with a sign of his destiny. According to Mongol tradition, he was born clutching a blood clot in his right fist, a symbol that he was destined to be a great warrior and leader. He was the son of Yesugei, a minor clan chief, and his wife, Holan. For a few years, Temujin lived a relatively normal life for a nomad child on the steppe. He learned to ride horses almost as soon as he could walk. He was taught to hunt with a bow and arrow. His father arranged a marriage for him with a girl from another tribe named Borta, a common practice to create alliances between clans. Everything changed when Temujin was only 9 years old. His father, Yesugei, was poisoned by a rival Tatar tribe while traveling home. This single act shattered Temujin's world. Without their leader, his family's clan abandoned them. Hoelun, her children and a few others were left to fend for themselves on the harsh, unforgiving steppe. They were cast out, stripped of their status and their livestock. This was a death sentence for most. They were forced to survive by foraging for roots, hunting for small animals, and fishing in the rivers. It was a time of extreme poverty and constant danger. This period of hardship forged Temujin's character. He learned firsthand about betrayal and the cruelty of the world. He also learned the importance of loyalty and self-reliance. During these desperate years, a rivalry grew between Temujin and his half-brother Begta. The tension escalated over the distribution of food, a critical resource for their starving family. In a grim display of dominance and a desire to establish his authority, even as a boy, Temujin, with the help of his brother Qasar, killed Begta. This was a brutal act, but in the unforgiving world of the steppe, it was a clear statement that he would not be challenged. The struggles did not end there. As a young man, Temujin was captured by the Taichud, the same clan that had abandoned his family. They enslaved him and forced him to wear a wooden collar, a symbol of extreme humiliation. Yet even in this desperate situation, Temujin's spirit was not broken. He watched, he waited, and he planned. One night, during a feast, he saw his opportunity. He knocked out his guard and escaped into the night, hiding in a river with only his nose above the water. This daring escape showed his incredible resilience and his refusal to accept defeat, qualities that would define his future leadership. After his escape from captivity, Temujin knew he could not survive alone. The steppe was a dangerous web of shifting loyalties, and he needed powerful allies to reclaim his family's position and to protect himself. His first and most important step was to find Bort, the girl to whom he had been betrothed as a child. He traveled to her tribe and formally claimed her as his wife. Her family honored the old agreement, and this marriage brought him a crucial alliance with her powerful Ongirat clan. More importantly, Borta's dowry included a luxurious black sable coat, a garment of immense value. Temujin did not keep this valuable coat for himself. He saw it as a political tool. He traveled to meet Togrul Khan, the leader of the powerful Kerate tribe. Togrul had been a friend and sworn brother, or Anda, to Temujin's father, Yesuge. Temujin presented the sable coat to Togrul as a magnificent gift, reminding him of the old bond with his father. This strategic gesture worked perfectly. Togrul was impressed by the young man's respect for tradition and his political savvy. He accepted Temujin as a protégé and pledged his support, giving Temujin the backing of a major military power. Another critical alliance was formed with a childhood friend named Jamuka. Temujin and Jamuka had become sworn brothers as boys, a sacred bond among Mongols. They reunited as young men and joined their small groups of followers together. For a time, they were a powerful force, living and raiding together. This partnership was essential for Temujin's early success, as their combined strength allowed them to grow their influence and attract more followers. Together, they represented a new and rising power on the steppe, and their early victories helped solidify their reputations as formidable leaders. However, the unity he was building was soon tested. A rival tribe, the Merkits, raided Temujin's camp and kidnapped his wife, Borta. This was an act of revenge for his mother, Holan, having been taken from the Merkits by his father years before. Temujin was devastated but determined. He called upon his powerful allies, Togrul and Jamuka. They agreed to help him, and together they assembled a large army. They attacked the Merkit camp, defeated them completely, and rescued Borta. This victory was a major turning point. It established Temujin as a capable military commander who could lead a large coalition and protect his people. The successful rescue of Borta greatly enhanced Temujin's reputation. More and more warriors were drawn to his camp, attracted by his leadership, his generosity in sharing spoils of war, and his focus on merit rather than noble birth. This growing popularity began to create a rift between him and his sworn brother, Jamuka. Jamuka believed in the traditional aristocratic structure of the steppe, where leaders were chosen based on their bloodline. Temujin, on the other hand, promoted people based on their skill and loyalty, regardless of their background. This fundamental difference in philosophy would eventually turn the two friends into bitter rivals. The inevitable split happened, and the followers of the two leaders divided. Those who favored aristocracy went with Jamuka, while those who believed in meritocracy followed Temujin. The rivalry escalated into open warfare. For years, the two men battled for supremacy over the Mongol tribes. This was not just a personal conflict, it was a civil war for the soul of the Mongol people. Would they continue with the old ways of division and aristocratic rule, or would they embrace Temujin's new vision of a unified nation based on loyalty and ability? Temujin faced many powerful enemies during this time, including his former allies. His relationship with Togrul Khan of the Karaits eventually soured, and they too went to war. In a series of brilliant and hard-fought campaigns, Temujin systematically defeated all of his rivals. He defeated the Tatars, the Karaits, and finally, the powerful Naiman tribe in the west. His most difficult struggle was against Jamuka. In the end, Jamuka's own men betrayed him and delivered him to Temujin. Temujin, honoring the bond they once shared, reportedly offered to forgive him, but Jamuka insisted on being executed in a noble manner, without the shedding of blood, a request Temujin granted. With all his rivals defeated, Temujin had finally achieved what no one had done before. He had united all the tribes of the Mongolian steppe under a single leader. In the year 1206, a great assembly, or Kuriltai, was called on the banks of the Onon River. All the chieftains and commanders gathered to formalize this new reality. At this meeting, Temujin was proclaimed the ruler of all the Mongols. He was given the honorary title Genghis Khan, which is often translated as universal ruler or oceanic ruler. The era of endless tribal warfare was over. A new nation, the Mongol Empire, was born. Once he became Genghis Khan, his first task was to transform the collection of feuding tribes into a unified and disciplined nation. He knew that the old tribal loyalties had been the source of constant conflict, so he completely reorganized Mongol society. He broke up the old clans and tribes and assigned the people into new decimal units. All able-bodied men were organized into groups of 10, called Arban, 100 called Zun, 1,000 or Mingan, and 10,000 called Tumen. A man's loyalty was no longer to his old clan chief, but to his commander and ultimately to Genghis Khan himself. This new structure was the foundation of his incredible army. Promotion within this army was based purely on merit. A brave and skilled soldier could rise to become a commander of 1,000 men, even if he was born a common shepherd. This created an intensely loyal and motivated fighting force. The commanders of his largest units, the Tumens, were his most trusted and proven generals, men like Subutai and Yebe, who had demonstrated their skill and loyalty on the battlefield. This system ensured that the most capable leaders were in charge, not just those with the right family connections. Discipline was absolute and strictly enforced. The rules were simple but harsh. If one soldier in a unit of 10 retreated from battle without orders, the other 9 were executed along with him. If the entire unit of 10 retreated, the rest of their 100-man unit was executed. This created an incredible sense of collective responsibility and ensured that his soldiers fought with unmatched ferocity and cohesion. They moved and fought as a single entity, not as a chaotic mob. This discipline made the Mongol army the most formidable military machine of its time. Beyond the military, Genghis Khan also laid the foundations for a state. He ordered the creation of a written script for the Mongolian language, which had previously been only a spoken tongue. This allowed him to create a written code of laws known as the Yasa. The Yasa covered everything from military discipline to property rights and personal behavior. It forbade kidnapping women, regulated hunting practices to preserve game, and declared all children legitimate, regardless of their mother's status. It created a framework of order and law that applied to everyone in his new nation, providing stability where there had once been chaos. With a unified nation and a powerful army behind him, Genghis Khan turned his attention outward. His first major campaign was not against a distant foe, but against the Tangut kingdom of Xixia to his south. This kingdom controlled vital trade routes along the Silk Road. The campaign served as a crucial training ground for his army, teaching them how to conduct siege warfare and fight against fortified cities, something the nomadic Mongols had little experience with. After several campaigns, the Xixia were forced to submit and become a vassal state, securing the Mongols' southern flank and giving them control over valuable trade. The next target was the much larger and more powerful Jin dynasty in northern China. This was a long and brutal war. The Mongols were masters of open field battle, but the Jin had massive, well-fortified cities. Genghis Khan adapted his strategies. He captured Chinese engineers and forced them to teach his men how to build siege engines like catapults and battering rams. He used psychological warfare, often offering cities the chance to surrender peacefully. If they refused, he would conquer the city and make an example of it, a brutal but effective tactic that encouraged other cities to surrender without a fight. While the war with the Jin was still ongoing, a new conflict erupted in the west. Genghis Khan had sought to establish peaceful trade relations with the powerful Khwarezmian Empire, which controlled much of modern-day Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asia. He sent a trade caravan to the Khwarezmian city of Otrar. However, the governor of the city, believing the caravan was full of spies, had the merchants executed and their goods stolen. When Genghis Khan sent envoys to demand justice, the Khwarezmian Shah foolishly had one of the envoys killed and the others humiliated. This insult enraged Genghis Khan. He saw it as a profound violation of diplomatic norms and a declaration of war. he temporarily halted his campaign in China and launched a massive invasion of the Khwarezmian Empire. This campaign was one of his most brilliant and devastating. He divided his army into several columns, attacking the empire from multiple directions in a coordinated assault that overwhelmed the defenders. Great cities like Samarkand, Bukhara and Urgench, centers of Islamic culture and learning, were utterly destroyed. The Shah was hunted down and died a fugitive on an island, his empire shattered in just a few years. Genghis Khan's military success was not due to brute force alone. It was the result of brilliant and innovative strategies. The core of his army was the Mongol cavalry archer. Every Mongol soldier was an expert horseman and archer, trained from childhood. They could ride for days, sleeping in the saddle and living off the land. Their composite bows were powerful weapons, capable of shooting arrows with great accuracy over long distances. This mobility and firepower allowed them to control the battlefield, striking quickly and retreating before an enemy could respond effectively. He was a master of deception and psychological warfare. A classic Mongol tactic was the feigned retreat. A portion of his army would pretend to flee in disarray, luring the enemy army into a disorganized chase. Once the enemy was stretched out and vulnerable, the main Mongol force, hidden in reserve, would spring the trap, surrounding and annihilating the pursuers. He also used spies and scouts extensively to gather intelligence on enemy territory, army strength, and political situations. He always sought to know his enemy better than they knew themselves, allowing him to exploit their weaknesses with precision. Communication and coordination were key to his large-scale campaigns. Before the Mongols, it was nearly impossible for large armies, separated by hundreds of miles, to coordinate their movements. Genghis Khan developed a system of signal flags, horns, and flaming arrows to give commands during battle. For long-distance communication, he established the Yam, an incredibly efficient postal relay system. A network of stations with fresh horses and riders was set up across the empire, allowing messages to travel up to 200 miles a day. This Pony Express gave him a tremendous strategic advantage, enabling him to command his empire and direct his armies with astonishing speed. His approach to conquered peoples was pragmatic and twofold. If a city or nation surrendered to him without resistance, they were generally spared. Their rulers would be incorporated into the Mongol system, and the people would be required to pay tribute. However, if a city resisted, the consequences were terrifyingly severe. After a conquest, artisans, engineers, and other skilled individuals were often spared and sent to other parts of the empire where their skills could be used. The rest of the population, especially the ruling class, often faced mass execution. This brutal policy served a clear purpose. It sent a powerful message to others to surrender quickly. Genghis Khan was more than just a conqueror. He was a nation builder who established a system of governance that brought unprecedented stability to his vast domain. One of his most significant non-military achievements was the promotion of trade and communication. By conquering the entire length of the Silk Road and making it secure, he created what became known as the Pax Mongolica, or Mongol Peace. For the first time in centuries, merchants and travelers could journey from China to Europe in relative safety. This led to a massive increase in trade and a vibrant exchange of goods, technologies, and ideas. He was surprisingly tolerant of different religions, a stark contrast to many rulers of his time. He himself followed the traditional Mongol shamanistic beliefs, but he understood that his empire contained Christians, Muslims, and Buddhists. He granted tax exemptions to the clergy of all these religions and encouraged religious debate. He believed that all religions had something to offer and that happy subjects were easier to rule. This policy of religious freedom prevented religious strife within the empire and won him the support of religious leaders in the lands he conquered. The legal code he established, the Yasa, was another pillar of his rule. While the full text has been lost to history, its principles are known from various historical sources. The Yasa established a rule of law that applied to everyone, from the common soldier to the highest-ranking noble. It promoted discipline, loyalty, and order. It outlawed theft, adultery, and betrayal. It also contained provisions that were far ahead of their time, such as principles of diplomatic immunity and the promotion of free trade, which were essential for the functioning of his international empire. Perhaps one of the most surprising facts about his rule is his impact on the modern world. By connecting East and West, the Mongol Empire facilitated the spread of technologies like gunpowder, paper, the compass, and printing from China to Europe. This exchange helped to spark the European Renaissance. He created a system of international law, promoted free trade, and established the concept of diplomatic immunity. While his methods were often brutal, the world he created was more interconnected than ever before. He did not just build an empire, he laid the groundwork for a global system. In his later years, Genghis Khan continued to lead his armies, solidifying and expanding his empire. His final campaign was against the Tangut kingdom of Shishia. They had previously submitted to him, but had refused to provide troops for his western campaign against the Khwarezmian Empire, an act of defiance he could not ignore. In 1227, during this campaign, Genghis Khan died. The exact cause of his death remains a mystery. Accounts vary, suggesting he died from injuries sustained after falling from his horse, from an illness like typhus, or from battle wounds. True to his character and Mongol tradition, his funeral was shrouded in secrecy. He had requested to be buried in an unmarked grave on a specific mountain in Mongolia. His funeral procession reportedly killed anyone and anything they encountered along the way to ensure the location would remain a secret. After the burial, the ground was trampled by horses to erase any trace of the tomb. To this day, despite numerous searches and modern technology, the final resting place of Genghis Khan has never been found, remaining one of history's most enduring mysteries. Before his death, Genghis Khan made careful arrangements for the succession of his empire. He knew that a dispute over leadership could shatter the unity he had worked so hard to build. He divided the empire among his 4 sons from his wife Borte-Yotchi, Chagatai, Ogedai, and Tolui. He designated his charismatic 3rd son, Ogedei, to be his successor as the next great Khan. This decision ensured a relatively smooth transition of power and allowed the empire to continue its expansion for several more decades under the leadership of his sons and grandsons. The empire Genghis Khan created did not die with him. His successors continued his conquests, pushing Mongol armies into Russia, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and the rest of China. At its height, the Mongol Empire was the largest contiguous land empire in world history, a testament to the foundation he had built. Though the empire eventually fractured and declined, his legacy endured. He united the Mongol people, created a written language, a legal code, and an administrative system. He reshaped the map of the world and created a new global network of trade and communication that forever changed the course of human history.